all the devices we use today, which make our lives easier, are inventions discovered millennia ago. The process of making paper dates back to 3,000 years BC, when ancient Egyptians successfully made papers from the papyrus plant. Papyrus is a type of marsh plant that grows abundantly along the Nile. The Egyptians used to take the leaves of this plant and weave them into a mat, which was then transformed into a thin, flat sheet. They wrote on it using a straw pen, which is known as a large pen. These were the first papers in history. Interestingly, after 5,000 years, these papers are still being discovered and their writings can be read. However, these papers were found inside graves and were not destroyed by natural causes. Let's talk about an older invention, the calendar. It's interesting to know that the first calendar that was ever made and had some semblance of accuracy was created by the Sumerians. This calendar was closer to the calendars of later eras. It had 12 months in a year, and each month had either 29 or 30 days. Or it's fascinating to think that this calendar was created around 3,100 years before Christ and quickly became popular across the civilized world of that time, from Egypt to China. Although minor changes were made to the calendar over time, it still wasn't completely accurate. It wasn't until about 1,000 years ago that Hakim Omar Khayyam and several astronomers and mathematicians created the Jalali calendar. This calendar was adjusted based on the rotation of the sun and was incredibly accurate. It's worth noting that this is still the most precise calendar in the world. Let's talk about one of the world's most mysterious inventions, the wheel. It is a mystery because no one knows exactly when it was invented and who the inventor was. However, we do know that it was invented by the Rhodians between 5,000 and 7,000 years ago, and it changed the world forever. The first wheels that we know of were made by the Sumerians. If the wheel was invented before them, there's no evidence left behind to tell us about it. The reason for this is that ancient wheels were usually made of wood, which doesn't last long under certain conditions. However, during the Bronze Age, we see the invention of the bronze wheel, which has survived and been passed down to us today. Well, let's go to another old invention, an invention whose inventor is known Cleisthenes. This gentleman invented democracy in Athens, Greece in 507 BC. The meaning of democracy is that people make all the decisions on an idea that has not yet been implemented 100, let alone in ancient Greece at this time. The Greeks were slave owners, and their democracy was such that those who knew how to vote for their government were landowners. Capture and execute Socrates, and for the crime of trying to make the slaves think, you should be executed and kill him. Concrete is an important ancient invention. The Romans invented the first successful concrete around 27 BC during the reign of Roman Emperor Augustus. They mixed limestone, volcanic ash, and brick fragments to create a type of concrete that the Colosseum monument was built with this type of concrete and still stands today. Interestingly, the Romans kept the formula for this concrete strictly confidential and did not allow it to fall into the hands of other empires. However, the Sassanid Empire somehow discovered this formula and used it to make cerua, which was also used for concrete work. Saroja was built with limestone, sand, and ashed. Let's explore the Far East and learn about an amazing invention called ondol. Koreans invented ondol 7,000 years ago, and it changed people's lives forever. They constructed canals under their buildings, and during winter, they lit a fire under the canals using firewood. This made the inside of their buildings warm and cozy. Ondol was the first ever heater and heating system in history, and it was also used by the Greeks and Egyptians. Interestingly, the Romans mocked this invention thousands of years later, suggesting that it would be better to create a place in the house and light the fire there, which is similar to today's fireplaces. Around 8,000 years ago, the first wines were created in what is now Georgia. This invention quickly gained popularity and was consumed across many regions from China to Europe. Wine became a popular choice, especially in times when safe drinking water was not readily available. The quinat is one of the most important inventions in regions with low water supply. This system, invented by Iranians, is built on the foundation of a mountain and brings underground water to the surface without the need for energy consumption. The aqueduct is dug into the slope and the wells are connected from below to bring the water to the ground level. To explore the origins of clothing, we must travel back in time more than 100,000 years. It is unclear where clothing originally came from, but we do know that even Neanderthals had clothing to protect themselves from the cold. The first clothes were made from animal skins. But over time, ancient civilizations improved upon the design and beauty of clothing. Containers are one of the oldest known inventions. The earliest vessels discovered were found in Chinese caves and were made from mud about 20,000 years ago. These clay vessels were baked on ash until they were completely hardened, making them the oldest form of pottery. As time progressed, the design of dishes changed significantly, and they began to be made from metal during the Bronze Era. However, mud and pottery were not made obsolete by this, but rather they came back stronger and more advanced. Today, porcelain is the highest quality dish available. Porcelain is an interesting invention in itself, and it is known that the first porcelain was created during the rule of China in 1600 BC. Porcelain is called China in English because it was first made in China. The invention of the line dates back to the first lines of history, which were written by Sumerian Hur about 3,400 years before Christ. Initially, the lines were in the form of different paintings, but later they transformed into a cuneiform line that was used in the region for many years. In the region, there are two types of languages, Semitic and non-Semitic. Semitic languages include Hebrew, Arabic, and Akkadian, while non-Semitic languages include Sumerian and modern Persian. In ancient times, the Achaemenids invented a military device that proved to be highly effective in wars. They modified the Median and Assyrian chariots to create the world's first superpower. The war chariot, the Achaemenians installed sharp sights on the chariot and trained fearless horses to drive it. The horses were positioned in the middle of the front. This war chariot was used to drive straight into the enemy's heart and mow down the opposition with its sharp sides. As a result, the Achaemenids were able to secure many victories in their battles. Let's explore the westernmost regions of the world and discover the innovative creations of ancient civilizations like the Aztecs and the Mayas. The Aztecs invented a delicious treat using cocoa from the tree, which they transformed into chocolate. However, their chocolate was different from what we know today. Bitter chocolate was used as a form of medicine and was highly beneficial for health. But when sugar was added to make it sweeter, it became more of a candy and lost its medicinal property. Another fascinating invention was the animated painting or animation, which was created in the burnt city of ancient Iran. This painting depicted an antelope jumping to eat the leaves of trees. The images engraved on a clay jar would also move. When the jar was turned, it